Welcome to My Writer's Room. I'm BT Higgins. Old stuff. Old stuff. When we're talking about a writer's old stuff, we're usually talking about garbage stories. The first book I ever wrote, I remember where I was and what it felt to write it. I was in Fresno, California, going to college, and I was taking a introduction to kids books class because I was going to be a teacher. And I really was remembering all of these great books that I grew up loving. And I thought, boy, let's try and make one. And so between all my classes and things, I thought of a story and started writing it. I remember writing it in Fresno in the hot sun. And I just remember going out and trying to write it. I don't know if it was by the pool or if it was just out on some grass. But I remember writing it out there in that blinding sun. And that was when I became a writer. But the book that I wrote, the book was called The Movers and the Setters. It's garbage. I hate to say it like that, but it's embarrassing. When I go back now and look at it, I just see problems and I see mistakes and I see, like, that doesn't make sense, Ben. And so it's embarrassing. But I kept writing. Now, the first book that you write is never going to be magical unless you're the exception to the rule. And I'm not the exception to any rule. My first book and my second book, none of it was magical, but I kept writing. I think I had written, sort of like 8 or 9 books. I went back to look at some of my old stuff. One of the books that was the most successful, and I think was a pretty good quality book, was called The Master of Disaster. And I published that one, probably like 10-something years ago. And I shared it with my class and sold some copies. And it was kind of my first jump into publishing and being an official writer instead of just a hobby writer. Well, I am now in the process of looking back at that manuscript. Kind of embarrassing still. It's not as bad as The Movers and the Setters. There's not as many mistakes because I was farther along in my writing process, but there's still some things that I can improve. So I'm going through Master of Disaster. I'm improving little things here and there, finding some of the mistakes, getting rid of those, having it be re-edited. I'm having a new cover made, and I'm going to republish it in a new version that's kind of an updated and better version. Basically, the first time I didn't even know how to make a cover or to have, in this case, have someone draw me a cover. And so I'm having a professional cover made for it, and I've re-edited it, and I'm gonna, get it looking real good. And so I'm gonna start publishing some of that old stuff, just because it's good to have that stuff not sitting in a drawer, but out where people can read it. And so that's what's going on with my old stuff. I think it's funny, the things that we write. When we're writing it, we're putting all of our heart and soul into it, and all we see is the magic of, look what I made. Look at this adventure. Look at this story. Everyone read it. And then when we come back to it 10 years later, or sometimes less than that, we'll see only wow, I sure missed this part. Oh, wow, this is embarrassing. Ooh, hide this away. We got to get over the embarrassment. Let's fix it, sure. But let's not be embarrassed that other people might think we're a horrible writer just because we used to be, or just because we are right now. I said that the wrong way. When we're just beginning, we are bad writers, but that's okay. We don't have to be a master writer at the beginning. Just embrace the fact that there will be mistakes and things won't make sense, and enjoy the process of finding those things that don't make sense and taking the advice that people give you and making your piece of writing better. I think for me, with The Movers and the Setters, which, by the way, was about rocks that could roll around and think and battled each other. And the movers were the rocks that were round enough to roll. And the setters were all the rocks that were too flat. They couldn't roll, so they had to kind of slide around. So it was just a whole fantasy story. I think it would be interesting someday when I have time to go back and reread it and see if I could rewrite that one. Because the idea of the story is still interesting, but all of the how I wrote it and how I told it was just really beginning level. And so you might have the same thing. The things you wrote in the past might seem kind of embarrassing, but it's still good to go back and read them because it shows you how much you've learned. And that can be encouraging, don't you think? All right, keep writing and have fun. We'll see you on the next lesson.